and he said, "There's nothing they can do. They can't operate. It's too far gone." It was pretty shocking. I didn't actually believe him, and do you know what? It sounds awful, but I'm not that I'm in denial, but I don't believe that that's it. I don't believe that you can stick me in a statistic and say, I get why they do it, but for me, I didn't believe him when he said it. Hi everyone, my name's Camilla, I'm 40, and on February the 1st this year, I was diagnosed with stage 4 terminal stomach cancer. I think since my diagnosis, my life has been incredible, which sounds a bit odd, I know. It's completely flipped everything for me. So my focus on my family, my kids, my focus on my health, but it's made it better, if that makes sense. So I know it sounds weird because obviously I've been diagnosed with terminal stomach cancer, but I can honestly say that in the last 5 to 6 weeks, as difficult as it's been at times, I'm very grateful for where I am now and for what I've gone through. So if I go back a year, I've yo-yo dieted all my life, and I've done a few sort of liquid-based low-calorie diets in the past. So this time last year, I was on a very low-calorie, mainly liquid diet, and I noticed that when I did have something more solid, I would struggle a little bit to swallow, where I'd have to have like a glass of water with it or something like that. And that was my first symptom, and pretty much only symptom that I've had. And it wasn't there all the time. And so throughout last year, it would sort of come and go, the sort of swallowing issue. And then I discovered I had a bit of a lump in my neck, which is actually still there now. So I went and got that checked. They said that was normal. It was just, they scanned it and said it was just a gland slightly swollen, which is normal. And because of that, I kind of put any worries behind me and didn't think anything more of it. And then towards the end of last year, I noticed the swallowing getting a little bit worse, where like most time, if I ate something dry that didn't have a sauce on it, I'd have to have a drink with it, because it would feel like it was sort of getting stuck. And then I went back to the doctor again in January and just said something doesn't feel right. It's not, I know it's not normal. So they referred me for an urgent endoscopy appointment, which is what I had on February the 1st this year, which is where he discovered what he described as a nasty lesion. And then he told us after the appointment that he thought it was early gastric carcinoma. So that was the first time that we sort of realized that it could be something really serious. And because that was my only symptom I had, I didn't really even look into cancers and stuff like that. Like, why would you when everything else is okay? After the endoscopy appointment, when he told me that he thought it was cancer, that was sort of the initial shock of, right, okay, I've got cancer. We hung on actually to his words that he used of early and small, when he was sort of describing what he found. So in our heads, we thought, right, okay, if it's cancer, it's early, it's small, that's good. They could cut it out. And we were sort of building ourselves up for that. And then I went for a CT scan on the following Friday. And then I had the call to go in to see the consultant the next Tuesday. If I'm honest, we weren't prepared to be told anything more than it was stomach cancer. It was early, it was small. And I walked into the room and I just had this sense that there was more to it than that. They say about gut feelings and stuff, and I just knew that something wasn't right. And that's when the consultant said, unfortunately, it's confirmed it is cancer, but the CT scan shows that it's spread to my liver, my lymph glands, and at the time he also said my lungs, but I've since found out that it's not actually in my lungs. And he said there's nothing they can do. They can't operate. It's too far gone. The only thing they can give me is a bit of palliative chemo just to try and extend my time. And that was it, really. That was the meeting. So it was pretty shocking. I didn't actually believe him. And do you know what? It sounds awful, but I'm not that I'm in denial, but I don't believe that that's it. I don't believe that you can stick me in a statistic and say, I get why they do it, but for me, I didn't believe him when he said it. Um, and that was the meeting, that was the shock, that was the sort of the horror of the situation. You think about your kids, and he's basically saying, I'm going to be dead by the end of the year, and I think about, I haven't seen my youngest go to school yet, he's only 3, all of these thoughts go through your head. But at the same time, when he said about palliative chemo, I've seen family members go through chemo. I know what chemo is, and I know what it does to the body. He's not telling me it can cure me. And I said to him, I'm well, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm fit, I'm healthy. Why would I take it? For me, it didn't feel right. So that was that meeting. Um, and we were fortunate actually that between that meeting and the oncologist meeting, which normally happens quite quickly, we had a 2-week gap. And in that 2 weeks, my fiance and I read every book, every article, like radical remissions, Chris beat cancer, like literally any positive stories out there to do with any form of cancer that goes against the typical statistics. And I knew over those 2 weeks that what my path was going to be for me. I did, and I don't think he was quite prepared for how I was going to be, but I don't think he gets a lot of me, if you know what I mean. I don't think a lot of people turn up and refuse treatment. I just explained to him that, I'm a busy mum, 4 young boys. I'm active. I feel really well. In the 2 weeks, I'd completely changed my diet around. I'd read about cancer feeding off sugars. I cut literally everything out of my diet, and I lived off raw vegetables and fruit for the first few weeks. Whilst I was researching what I should be eating, I just thought, right, that's the safest option. That's what I'm going to go with. I drank water, green tea, and lived off fruit and veg. And just by doing that, really helped me mentally and physically, how I felt. And then every book you read about supplements and stuff, and like you end up buying everything you read about. So I've got like a massive cupboard full of supplements. I just thought, well, if it worked for someone else, why wouldn't it work for me? I'll give it a go. So that's what I did before that appointment in those 2 weeks. So when I did turn up to see him, I already knew from the first appointment that I didn't want chemo. And he said, okay, that's fine. I will have another CT scan because just out of my own curiosity, I want to see how I'm doing. So that will probably be maybe in, I don't know, 4 or 5 months' time, something like that. I will speak to him about it. Because I do feel well. I do feel better than I did like 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. So it'll be interesting to see what's going on. And at the end of the day, even if the cancer's stayed the same and it hasn't spread and it hasn't grown, I quite happily live how I am for the rest of my life, as long as I'm living. For years of my life, I've been unhappy with like my weight and how I look and that side of things. And you end up sort of being quite negative and feeling negative about yourself. So I think what this has taught me is to love myself, love my body, love my cancer. It's not my cancer's fault. It's there. I've created it. So I don't hate it. I'm going to help it. I'm going to help my body. And I think the number one thing is to listen to your body. Like right from the start, if I'd have really listened to my body a year ago, maybe I wouldn't be quite in this position. But I'm here for a reason. And if it's to help people listen to their bodies and share my story and, the positive side to having cancer, then that's why I've got it. That's why I'm here. I obviously started off on the sort of raw fruit and veg. I eat a lot of vegetables and fruit. I have a smoothie every morning with like everything in it. Berries are really good for anti-cancer, so I have a lot of berries, fruit-wise. I've started to introduce some whole grains in as well. And everything I do eat, although it's expensive, is organic. It's not a cheap diet to do by any means, but for me, like my body never agreed with dairy. So there's a reason why I couldn't really have dairy. So I've cut that out. I've never been a huge meat fan, but I do have a bit of organic chicken. I have some wild organic fish now and again. But yeah, it's for me, it's if you eat something and you feel good after eating it, then it's right for your body. If you don't feel right, if you feel a bit bloated or something's not quite right, then don't eat it again because it's not right. You have to really listen to what your body tells you. I also fast as well. So there's been clinical sort of trials and there's proof that actually fasting helps the cancers shrink. So for me, that was a no-brainer, right? Why wouldn't I do that? So I did a 4-day fast and I'll keep doing that sort of every 5 weeks or so. And intermittent fasting. So you sort of finish eating around 5 o'clock and don't start again until late next morning. Again, I listen to my body. If I'm hungry when I wake up, then I eat. I don't stress about it. I don't want to put any stress on my body. And it's a mental thing as well, being in control of your health and your diet. And, I don't need doctors to do what I'm doing at the moment. It's easy. It's what I put in, what I get out. Obviously, kids are a huge thing for me. To have 4 of them and young. I mean, I've spent the last probably I don't know, 8 years pregnant. It's crazy. So for me, I've dedicated a big chunk of my life to raising kids and creating life. So I want to make sure that I can give them the best life. And if I can do that by example, my focus was always on them and work, and it wasn't on me, and it wasn't on health, and it wasn't on family time. This has completely changed that. This has completely changed my view on life and what life's about. So it's a good thing, to spend time with them and to run around and be crazy on a trampoline. Before I would avoid it, whereas now I jump right in. There are days that I'm not this positive, and it does get me down. And what I've noticed is when I'm in a negative mindset, my physical health changes. So if I have a down day and I'm not feeling great, positive, I can actually feel my cancer. I can feel like a pain in my stomach. And I know that there is a link between how you're mentally feeling and how you're physically feeling. So for me, I've started yoga, I meditate, I do a lot of sort of self-healing activities in my own time. Having a routine is really good for that. So you get up and your sort of plan for the day, especially if you're not in a great place. Like I do cry, but everyone keeps telling me it's good to cry, you're letting it out. And it is really important to let it out, because I was always one for bottling stuff up, and that doesn't help physically or mentally. So I think being kind to yourself, allowing yourself days where you can just cry. If you want to just hide under a duvet, do it. Don't be ashamed of it. And also don't be afraid to ask for help. I want to plan my wedding for 2028. And I will plan it for 2028 because I will be here then. And if I can think that way, then there's no other way. I can't even comprehend not being here, if I'm honest. That's how I'm living. I'm living for today and I'm living for tomorrow. And I believe my diagnosis, but I don't believe my prognosis. That's where my head's at. Without hope, there is no life. So you always have to have hope. And to leave the hospital, which many people do in my position, feeling helpless and hopeless, it's so important that you turn that around. You have to believe in yourself and you have to help yourself. No one can do it for you. It's down to you to do it. And for us, we built our business on hope. That's what our business was called. And there was a reason why we called that, because without hope, I wouldn't be sat here today talking to you. I'd be in a completely different mental place. So yeah, I think for me, just never give up on hope.